come from Michigan, the words hot fudge sauce, bumpy cakes, and peanut butter blocks should bring to mind the delightful treats that were uniquely Michigan. Two companies that are synonymous with sweet candy goodness have now merged into one. Now Saunders and Morley Candies are bringing new treats to Michigan with the traditions that have made them household names in the Wolverine State.
Welcome to Celebrate Michigan. I'm Christy Derry.
And I'm Matt Beiser. Today our show is all about candy, which is why it's my favorite show ever.
Saunders was first opened by Fred Saunders in June 17th of 1875 and started with a single retail shop in downtown Detroit. Over the years, the company has concentrated on expanding its retail stores and eventually built up to over 57 stores in the metropolitan Detroit area.
With 90 years' experience built on family recipes, quality ingredients, and traditional techniques, Morley Candies has earned international gold standard quality reputation, and all started in Clinton Township.
Now, he joined the company in November of 2007, graduated from Walsh College with a BA in finance, and is currently in charge of planning, retail, branding, and marketing. I'd like to welcome Saunders Chairman Brian Jefferson to Celebrate Michigan.
Thanks for having me.
Hi, Brian. And also with us is a man who has been with the company since August 1993. His act as controlling CFO, VP of Manufacturing, COO, and is currently the company president. Please welcome Ron Rapson.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
Great to have you too, Ron.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about the history of the companies.
I'll start. The history, as we were just talking about, Saunders was born, if you will, in 1875, and Morley Candies in 1919. So we own two brands that have been around for over 100 years. Saunders, as most of us know who grew up in metropolitan Detroit, was such a huge name in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s. And as we indicated earlier, it had over 50 stores locally here in the metropolitan Detroit area. It was Detroit. Saunders was Detroit, and Morley Candy Makers was also, again, born in Detroit. Started on the east side of Detroit on Gratiot Avenue, and moved to East Detroit in the late 50s. And the Morley family, still is around and still is a little bit active in the business. The two companies merged, if you will, in 2002 when Morley Candy was able to buy the Saunders brand from a company in actually Bridgeport, Connecticut, and bring it back home to Detroit. It had fallen in some hard times in the Detroit area in the 1980s and early 90s, and a company in Connecticut bought it, and we started working with that company in the early 1990s, and we're able to buy the brand back and bring it to Detroit, and now we make all these fine products right here in Clinton Township, Michigan.
Yeah,
that's incredible. Yeah.
Well, I'm a huge fan myself, so this is very exciting for me. Now, since that time, it started way back in
1875.
1875. It's been quite a journey for it. I mean, it's grown and grown, and then it's fell in some hard times. And so, where does that bring it now? Where is Saunders at?
Well, I'll field this one, I guess. We're in a part of our growth or revised. We're reviving the brand, and we're bridging that gap now of growing it again. And actually, we're growing it nationally. We're actually have a lot of footholds in other states, Washington, California, Arizona, Florida, and Texas. So we're seeing the brand grow again. We're excited about that. We have a great history to call upon. Fred Saunders was really a revolutionary chocolate maker back in the day, and he really was ahead of his time.
What was it that he did to get the company started? Did he have a kind of miracle recipe for lunch? I mean, what was it that happened?
Well, no. He was from German ancestry, and he learned to make it in Germany, and he wanted to bring premium value chocolates to America, and that's what he set out to do. And he accomplished that. He has great little stories about him. He survived the Great Chicago Fire and moved here because of that. His house was literally on fire, and picked up the family and moved to the next big city, which is Detroit, and that's how he started. That's how he came to Detroit.
Wow.
So, and to add to that, one of the things that what we're doing now moving forward is, as we just talked about, this brand has so much recognition here in the Detroit area. Again, as we were kids growing up with this, I can remember as a kid going down to Detroit, to Hudson's to see Santa Claus and go to a Saunders. the feedback that we get from our website and from customers that come into our store that are so passionate about this brand and the products that we make, it's overwhelming. And because of that, we were able to grow this brand, now bring it to the next generation. Those kids that haven't experienced the stores that I experienced when I was a kid. And there was no magic recipe, but what Fred Sanders did and what we do today, we make great products with the highest quality ingredients that you can make. You take a look at some of the products that are on this table that are hot fudge topping. That's world renowned, and that product starts with just the basic quality ingredients: fresh cream, sugar, chocolate, and it's made to a specific recipes that have been around since 1875, believe it or not. We actually have in our plant an old box that has typewritten and handwritten recipes that we keep just. It's
From
not what we use today.
1875?
Yeah, as memorabilia.
Wow.
Fascinating stuff. And again, those links back to the old days are what we're carrying forward now and taking the company to the next stage.
You have all these old recipes in a lockbox that you're still using from back in the 1800s. Are you coming up with new recipes also all the time?
Well, that's one of our challenges is, again, we have these great old products. One of the things that we wanted to do is reach, youth, and some new products are out right now. For instance, chocolate-covered potato chips. That's a big thing right now. And
I'm in.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? That's part of the things we have to do, or are discovering is what's popular in today's world. Yeah. And we make great products. We apply that to chocolate-covered potato chips, pretzels, our almond pea candy, things like that. So.
Yeah, like any business, you can't. Back in the old days, I suppose there was a 1 pound box of chocolate where you stick your finger in, you try and guess what it is. I mean, but we still have those boxes of chocolate, and we have great customers that are very loyal to those boxes of chocolate. But you got to innovate, you got to be new, you got to be different, and be it with our bumpy cake, for instance. Well, we now have a chocolate bumpy cake, a strawberry bumpy cake. We're actually testing out a peach bumpy cake. And so you got to be different. You got to be serving size change. So you always have to be thinking of new things and innovating. Any business has to do that.
We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll talk more with Brian and Ron about the Sanders and Morley Candy Company and how their friendship formed around it.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Celebrate Michigan. We are talking with Brian Jefferson and Ron Rapson with Sanders and Morley Candy Company.
On our last segment, we had an entire array of your hot fudge and caramels that I've been putting on my sundaes since as long as I can remember. But now we've got some different kinds of products out here. Could you tell us a little bit what these are?
Well, again, as Ron alluded to earlier, or talked about earlier, you get to change with times and different potables. And these are chocolate-covered items like cranberries, blueberries from Michigan, cherries, all that kind of stuff. And that's, portion sizes. I mean, the box chocolates are kind of going a little bit on a downward trend. This box right here, actually, though, is a replica of a 1928 box. The 1920s were the Sanders heyday. That's when they were at their zenith, Sanders was, as far as popularity and even regionally around in the Midwest. And of course, the pink purse represents our partnership and commitment to breast cancer awareness. Mostly women buy our product, believe it or not. 80% of our sales come from women. So we are championing, obviously, that great cause.
20%, I think.
You might be large 20%. But as far as chocolates are concerned, I should say that.
Oh, I see.
80% of them are women. We partner with Carmanos, again, a local Detroit hospital and Cancer Research Center. And we give a whole $1 for every item sold, not a percentage of profits.
Oh, wow.
So that's kind of our thing we do. And we believe that, our mothers, sisters, and grandmothers are more than a percentage of profits. They deserve more. So we do a $1 per item.
Now, do you guys have a favorite, each of you, of your new products?
There's a lot of good ones. I personally have a favorite. There's And Brian referred to the dark chocolate covered Michigan blueberries. And those are just wonderful products. And you know, the wonderful thing about our products, and I think you could taste any one of them and just enjoy it. Obviously, people have their favorites, but we really put a lot of pride into the products we make. And you know, one of the pieces of our mission statements is that a product must be so good that you're proud to share it with your family and friends. And one of the first things I learned about Morley Candy when I started there 17 years ago, Mr. Morley told me this. He goes, you know, you put a plate of products out on the table and you know you've done your job when a person goes for a second piece. And it's actually very interesting. We do that test, and when we have guests at our facility, you put out a plate of chocolates and they'll go for a piece, and when they go for a second piece, you know you've done your job. It's a simple test, but it works. Yeah.
So how did you two meet? A very interesting history.
Well, we grew up only a few blocks apart, and we met playing baseball and football in the local leagues, played with each other as well on same teams actually, and then really got to know each other really well in high school, and been friends ever since, and was in each other's weddings, and always stayed in touch, obviously, because we were, you know, really, really good friends. And then, you know, lo and behold, you know, 20-something years later, after college, we are in business together.
Did you ever, either of you, imagine working for Saunders?
No, you know, I actually was there before Brian, and one fascinating thing about, not fascinating, but pretty interesting thing about growing up in Royal Oak that we did and playing Little League football, we used to sell Morley Candy to fund our football operations. And it is somewhat ironic that, you know, we're working for this company here. And, you know, when I started in the business, the thing that I was just overtaken by is just, it's a great business. It's a great product. You know, how can you go wrong working at a chocolate factory? You know, it's just one of those things. People, when they eat our product, they love it. You put smiles on people's faces. And, you know, we were fortunate enough, you know, several years ago, you know, to bring Brian on board to help us continue on the evolution of our business and grow it now to, as we referred to earlier, the next generation. And again, some of these new products that you see.
Is it also sort of a pride factor being involved in a company that's been around in Detroit for so long?
Absolutely. I like to say it's not only it's about a pride thing, it's you feel a sense of stewardship, you know, commitment to make it work, because so many people are counting on you to keep this brand alive. We get dozens and dozens of emails and letters and phone calls about great stories about growing up with Sanders. And the last thing we want to do on our watch is let it go down. And so our commitment is to grow it and grow it exponentially. And in fact, we've seen a large growth outside of our own region. Our largest growth is actually outside of our own state.
Oh, wow.
Believe it or not.
Yeah, there's a tremendous amount of responsibility that comes with, you know, in any business there's a lot of responsibility, but in this business in particular, since we've grown up with the brand, we know how much it means to people in Detroit, specifically in the metropolitan area, and people that have left the state of Michigan. It's as Brian indicated, it's amazing to hear some of the phone calls from, you know, Florida or California or wherever where our product might be placed, and said, you know, we remember this, you know, years ago, and we thought you guys went away. And so it very prideful, and but very much a huge amount of responsibility to keep that brand and keep both brands going strong. Yeah.
Now you both hold pretty high offices in the company. I wonder, what is it that you do all day? I'd love to sit around and come up with candy ideas all day long, but I'm sure there's more to it than that.
Sometimes it is that, though. Really, we do a lot of research into finding out what sells. We visit a lot of trade shows as well. But, you know, the reality is it's still a company. We're a manufacturing operations that also has retail. We distribute. We have wholesale. So a lot of our time is dealing with things like, you know, banks. We met with bankers today, local bankers. You know, Salesforce, you know, we worry about the same thing, you know, whether it's healthcare, you know, ongoing things. So there is some mundane to it, but A lot of our days still, we do testings and we do research and we sit
Are you
people
looking for
down.
guinea pigs?
We
Oh.
always are looking for
Would
focus
love that.
groups. Always looking for focus groups. We have a lot of volunteers for that.
Good.
Yeah.
And, you know, running a small business is, you know, you might talk to other folks. I mean, it's you just don't sit in your office and go through spreadsheets. I mean, you know, today, for instance, we were actually helping create samples for a new customer in Minnesota, as a matter of fact. And it's something new and refreshing every day. And, you know, we as owners, and we have, you know, a couple other partners, we're very involved in the business on a day-to-day basis.
Great. Well, we'd like to hear a lot more about that when we come back in just a few minutes.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Celebrate Michigan. I'm Matt Beiser.
And I'm Christy Derry, and we have with us today Chairman Brian Jefferson and President Ron Rapson of the Sanders and Morley Candy Company.
And we have the honor of being in the presence of a Sanders favorite, the original Bumpy Cake. Could you tell us a little bit about the history of this? This is a true classic in front of us here. When did this begin?
You know what? I'm a little stumped on that one.
You know, Bumpy Cake's been around for decades. Okay,
Yeah.
it started in the 50s. Couldn't give you the exact date, but we actually have the original recipe for this cake, and this was one of those boxes that I was telling you about.
One of the ones in the box, yeah.
Absolutely. And you know, it comes in a couple different sizes, but this cake is a great example of you know, how things don't need to change, and people remember them, and they always come back, gravitate back to them. You know, fresh buttercream on the stripes. It's got a fudge taste to it. You know, kids have grown up with this birthday cakes for decades, and we sell more Bumpy Cakes than we sell any other cake on our cake line.
Now, labels. Your labels, there's an evolution to them. Can you go into that?
Packaging and labels, exactly. One of the things that we've done, we've heard this, you know, people, you know, in the retail business upgrade their packaging, their look all the time. Well, Sanders hasn't done it in quite a while. The last label change was in the 1970s, the old cursive S. Mm-hmm. So what we did is we did a lot of focus groups, a lot of people outside of our own state where we see a lot of growth, couldn't read that very well on the shelf. So what we did is we have a lot of history to look back on and have access to. We went back to a 1920s look and logo, and you'll see that it's a little clearer to read, but yet it's still kind of retro, but what's old is new and new is old, and we kind of went back to that look.
Okay, so the cursive we see here, that's what you changed from?
Yeah, that's actually a 1970s, maybe 60s logo. Sanders at one point, they probably had eight to nine different logos. In fact, we have one historical shot of a building. There's 4 logos on the same building.
Nice.
And it's such an important part of your trademark, obviously. You know, when people see that, they got to know. And you know, there's always a concern when you start changing logos and product descriptions that people first reaction may be, okay, well, what's different about the product? But again, with the research that we've done, and again, there is some consistency with the new logo that we're going to, that Sanders had it, you know, years and years and years ago. So it has that retro look to it. And again, the feedback has been very positive.
You also have a new line of products.
Yes, actually, we're excited about it. Actually, the production yesterday, actually. It's a new line called the Woodward Collection, named after the famous Woodward Street here in Metro Detroit. And his first store, Fred Sanders' first store, is on Woodward, and that's why we named it the Woodward Collection. Mm-hmm. It's our best pieces, our most premium chocolate that went back to 1930s recipes, and it's our best pieces. And in fact, one of the first stores that's going to take that line is Macy's, and we're partnering with Macy's to expand Sanders and the Macy's.
Another
so all those
classic
chocolate
line.
favorites come in a collection now?
Well, it's a new box that is, again, what's old is new is old, and mm-hmm. we think it looks, you know, we kind of getting away from the burgundy look, so we need to update that. And so we, again, did a lot of research, had some very creative people, a little more creative than Ron and I, working on this, and it's been an evolution. It's taken about, what, 2 years?
Yeah.
2 years to do, and we're excited. We're really counting on it, and so far the feedback has been great.
Good. Well, one of the big things I remember about Saunders from when I was a kid was riding my bike up to the local Saunders store and getting a sundae with the hot fudge on it, but I don't see those around anymore. You know, I'll pass a Dairy Queen and just, you know, start wincing and go, where's the Saunders? So what's happening with the stores?
You know, again, we've gone through an evolution. Sanders has over the last several decades, and when we bought the brand back in 2000, there weren't any stores left. All the stores had vanished, and so we opened our first store with the Sanders name on it in the Laurel Park Mall right down the road here. And it was just an overwhelming success. And since that time, we've had the ability to open a store in Birmingham, Grosse Pointe, one at 12 Oaks Mall, one in downtown Rochester, Wyandotte, and there's actually last year was a store up in Mackinac Island. So the process.
So they're coming back.
They're coming back, absolutely, and the reaction has been very positive. You know, again, we have great products, so that's the easy part of it. Finding the right location and bringing them back into the mainstream is our next biggest challenge, and we look forward to it.
Where do you see this company in 10 years down the road?
Yeah, 10 years down the road, we're going to be certainly bigger than we are today. You know, we've grown. You know, in this down economy, we've been very blessed and fortunate that we've actually been able to grow the last 3 or 4 years, double digits, and we expect more of that, and we can see a time where there's Sanders stores, maybe not to the 50 or 60 that were like in the old days, but certainly more than we have today, and to further that, have the Sanders brand be more of a nationwide brand. It's just to be local here.
You mentioned that there are a lot of stores reopening back in the Michigan, Detroit area. Do you expect to see stores in other places also?
We've talked about it, but the reality is we have a long way to go in our own backyard. One of the things that we're doing is, even in the last 2 years, we're looking to change our retail presence in the Detroit market. And that is make a bigger, more destination place, a bigger store, the bigger footprint that has outdoor and indoor seating, a gathering place. Ice cream and chocolate is a very social event, as you know.
A tasty event.
Very. And so, the feedback, in our research, research means talking to people, basically. And so we've done a lot of that. And so we feel like it should be a gathering place. So that's what we're aiming towards.
Well, if our viewers would like to learn more about Sanders or Morley, they can visit your website at sanderscandy.com, and there's morleycandy.com. And you can also look them up on Facebook and Twitter. I just want to thank you guys for joining us on our show. I'm afraid we're out of time. We could talk about candy for a very long time here, but it was great having you on our show. And thank you for tuning in to Celebrate Michigan, where we celebrate together.
We'll see you next time.